Deep in the snowy forests of the taiga, there is a secret training facility that doesn't appear on any map, where the world's most elite special forces recently discovered that everything they knew about combat was fundamentally wrong. In today's documentary, we follow a team of top-tier Western operators, men trained in Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai, as they go head-to-head with the practitioners of Systema, the legendary and often misunderstood Russian martial art. This wasn't just a friendly exchange of techniques. It was a high-stakes experiment to see if a fluid, breathing-based style could actually survive against the rigid, high-intensity violence of modern tactical warfare. The outcome left the instructors speechless and the operators questioning their own survival instincts. Before we dive into this incredible journey of bone-crunching strikes and psychological warfare, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from today? The morning mist hung heavy over the jagged peaks of the Ural Mountains as Task Force Alpha, an amalgam of the world's most decorated special operators, stepped off the transport helicopter into a world of biting frost. They were led by Miller, a veteran with 15 years of combat experience who viewed hand-to-hand combat as a series of calculated, high-force maneuvers designed to break an opponent as quickly as possible. To Miller and his team, the Russian art of Systema had always looked like a choreographed dance, slow, fluid, and seemingly lacking the explosive power required for real-world survival. They had come to this remote outpost to prove that their hard style of combat would dominate the soft approach of the East, expecting a week of easy victories and a chance to show off their superior physical conditioning. However, as they marched toward the nondescript concrete bunker nestled in the tree line, a sense of unease began to settle over the group, prompted by the eerie silence of the surrounding woods. Waiting for them in the center of a Spartan training hall was an unassuming man named Victor, a former operative whose frame was thick but lacked the chiseled musculature of the Western soldiers. Victor didn't wear a tactical vest or combat boots. He wore simple sweats and moved with a relaxed gait that Miller found almost insulting, given the intensity of the environment. The first day began with a demonstration of heavy contact, where the task force members were invited to strike Victor with full force to test his defensive capabilities. Miller stepped forward first, launching a precise, powerful jab aimed directly at Victor's solar plexus, a move that had ended countless fights in the past. To the shock of the onlookers, Victor didn't block the strike or move away. Instead, his body seemed to ripple like water, absorbing the kinetic energy and redirecting it back into Miller's own arm. It was as if Miller had punched a heavy bag made of liquid, and the recoil sent a jarring shockwave through his shoulder. As the session progressed, the elite troops were introduced to the concept of internal breathing, a pillar of Russian combat that focuses on maintaining a calm heart rate even under extreme physical duress. Victor explained that tension is the ultimate enemy in a fight, as it acts as a conductor for pain and limits the speed of one's reactions. The Western operators, used to tensing up to absorb impact, found this philosophy completely counterintuitive, as they had been taught that a rigid core was their best defense against injury. They spent hours practicing slow-motion movement, which felt agonizingly boring to men who were used to high-octane drills and rapid-fire repetitions. Yet, as they moved slowly, they began to notice subtle flaws in their own balance and posture that were usually hidden by the speed of their movements. It was a humbling realization that even the world's best warriors had foundational cracks that a master like Victor could exploit with the flick of a wrist. On the third day, the training shifted from empty-hand combat to situational survival, involving multiple attackers and confined spaces, where the results became truly unexpected. Miller and his team were placed in a darkened room and told to defend themselves against 3 Russian trainees who moved with the same eerie fluidity as Victor. In standard tactical training, the goal is to neutralize one target and move to the next, but the Systema practitioners didn't fight in a linear fashion. They moved in circles, using the operator's own momentum to crash them into one another. Every time Miller tried to lock down a limb or apply a submission hold, his opponent would simply melt out of the grip, turning a disadvantageous position into a counter-strike. The elite troops found themselves gasping for air, not from physical exhaustion, but from the sheer cognitive dissonance of fighting an enemy that refused to offer any resistance to push against. The most jarring moment occurred during the knife defense module, where the speed and lethality of the Russian style were put on full display in a high-pressure simulation. Miller, wielding a rubber training blade, lunged at Victor with a flurry of strikes that would have overwhelmed almost any traditional martial artist. Victor moved within the dead zone of the blade, his hands moving like silk as he redirected Miller's wrist with the slightest pressure, causing Miller to inadvertently stab his own reflection in a nearby mirror. There was no clashing of limbs or loud impacts, There was only a terrifyingly quiet efficiency that made the Western team realize they were facing a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. Victor explained that in Systema, the goal is not to fight the weapon, but to become a ghost that the weapon cannot find, a concept that felt more like sorcery than military science to the battered operators. By the fourth day, the psychological toll was becoming evident as the elite troops began to experience a profound shift in their perception of violence and self-defense. They were no longer the confident aggressors who had landed at the helipad. They were now students struggling to unlearn years of hard muscle memory that Victor insisted was a liability. The unexpected result was not a sudden mastery of Russian techniques, but a total breakdown of the operators' existing combat systems, leaving them feeling vulnerable and exposed. They practiced the walk, a method of moving through a crowd while maintaining total situational awareness and a relaxed nervous system, realizing that their typical combat crouch actually signaled their intentions to everyone around them. This shift from predatory aggression to calm presence was the most difficult transition for the men, who had been conditioned to believe that intensity was the only path to victory. The intensity peaked during a drill known as the pressure cooker, where the operators had to navigate a series of rooms while being struck intermittently by instructors to test their ability to stay relaxed under pain. Unlike the smoke sessions of Western Special Forces training that aimed to break the spirit, this drill aimed to keep the spirit intact while the body suffered. Miller watched as his toughest sergeant, a man who could bench press 400 pounds, was brought to his knees not by a heavy blow, but by a light, whip-like strike to the calf that hit a specific nerve cluster. The Russian instructors weren't looking for knockouts. They were looking for disruptions, moments where the nervous system would freeze, leaving the operator wide open for a finishing move. It was a surgical approach to combat that treated the human body as a machine with specific off switches that could be triggered with minimal effort. As the week drew to a close, the final test was announced. A full-contact sparring session where the Western operators would use their primary styles against the Systema masters in a no-holds-barred environment. The air in the bunker was thick with tension as Miller stepped into the ring against Victor for a final showdown that would determine the validity of everything they had learned. Miller reverted to his roots, using a heavy leg kick followed by a devastating overhand right, hoping to catch Victor off guard with raw power and speed. But Victor didn't retreat. He stepped into the strike, his body turning like a revolving door, and used the force of Miller's punch to send Miller sprawling across the floor. It wasn't a throw in the traditional sense. It was a total collapse of Miller's center of gravity, orchestrated by a man who seemed to have no bones in his body. The result was truly unexpected because for the first time in their careers, these elite warriors felt defeated without being beaten in the traditional sense of the word. They hadn't been overpowered by strength or outworked by endurance. They had been outmaneuvered by a philosophy that valued relaxation over tension and flow over friction. Miller sat on the floor, breathing heavily, and looked at his hands, realizing that his reliance on toughness had been a shield that prevented him from seeing the true nature of combat. The Russian instructors didn't gloat. They simply offered water and began discussing how these principles could be integrated into the Westerners' existing skill sets. This wasn't about one style being better than the other, but about discovering a missing dimension of human performance that the West had largely ignored in favor of measurable physical metrics. In the aftermath of the training, the Task Force Alpha members found that their performance in other areas, shooting, rappelling, and even tactical communication, improved significantly because of their new focus on relaxation. By lowering their baseline stress levels, they were able to process information faster and make decisions with a clarity they had never experienced in high-pressure scenarios. The unexpected result was a holistic transformation of the warrior, moving away from the soldier as a tool toward the soldier as a conscious entity. They learned that the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield isn't a rifle or a knife, but a mind that remains calm in the center of a storm. When they finally boarded the helicopter to return home, they were no longer just elite troops. They were practitioners of a deeper, more silent form of lethality. The story of this encounter spread through the special operations community like wildfire, sparking debates about the future of close-quarters combat training in the modern era. Many skeptics dismissed the accounts as exaggerated, but those who had been in the bunker knew the truth. They had seen a glimpse of a higher level of mastery. The Russian hand-to-hand experiment proved that the human body is capable of incredible feats of resilience when the ego is set aside in favor of pure physiological efficiency. It challenged the no pain, no gain mantra of Western athletics, suggesting instead that no tension, no limit might be a more effective path for the professional warrior. This paradigm shift began to influence training programs across various branches. as instructors sought to replicate the flow state that Victor had demonstrated so effortlessly. Years later, Miller would recount this story to new recruits, emphasizing that the unexpected result wasn't about the fight itself, but about the realization of one's own limitations. He taught them that being elite isn't about how hard you can hit, but about how well you can adapt to a force you don't understand. The Russian forest had stripped away their titles and their gear, leaving only the raw essence of their survival instincts, and found them wanting. It was a lesson in humility that became the foundation of a new era of special operations training, blending the best of Western grit with the profound insights of Eastern fluid combat. The secret facility in the taiga remains, a silent witness to the moment when the world's most dangerous men learned that the greatest strength is often found in the ability to let go. The documentary concludes with a look at how Systema is being integrated into modern self-defense for civilians, showing that these elite principles are accessible to anyone willing to change their mindset. You don't need to be a Tier 1 operator to benefit from the breathing and relaxation techniques that saved Miller from a world of pain in the Ural Mountains. The unexpected result for the average person is often a reduction in daily anxiety and an increase in physical coordination that transcends the gym or the dojo. As the camera pans over the snowy Russian landscape, we are reminded that true power is quiet, and the most effective combatant is the one who can smile in the face of danger. It is a hauntingly beautiful end to a journey that began with a desire for dominance and ended with a quest for internal balance. Finally, we must ask ourselves, what other secrets are hidden in the traditional martial arts of the world, waiting to be rediscovered by modern science and military logic? The encounter between Task Force Alpha and the Russian masters was just one chapter in a much larger story of human potential and the evolution of conflict. As technology continues to dominate the battlefield, the value of the human element, the raw, unshielded capability of the body and mind, becomes more precious than ever. The lessons learned in that cold concrete bunker serve as a reminder that we are more than just muscles and reflexes. We are complex systems of energy and intent. The world of combat is changing, and those who refuse to adapt to the unexpected will inevitably find themselves left behind in the dust of history. Miller's journey from a rigid soldier to a fluid warrior is a testament to the power of open-mindedness and the courage it takes to face the unknown. We hope this story has inspired you to look beyond the surface of things and explore the soft power that lies within your own life. Whether you are a martial artist, a soldier, or someone just looking to find more peace in a chaotic world, the lessons of Systema offer a path toward a more resilient and integrated self. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the elite troops and the Russian combat secret. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating stories.